Rochish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Doru bar Papa. Harev no Adonai Eloheinu es divrei selosko befinu fifios amcha beis Yisrael. Demiya anachnu b'tzetzoeinu b'tzetzoei tzetzoeinu b'tzetzoei amcha beis Yisrael. Kulonu yodei shumecha v'lomdeisi v'secha l'shmo. Ne'oivai s'chakmeini mitzvosecha kili olam kili. Kili bi tomim b'chukecha l'manu evo shli olam eshkach b'kudecha kivon chi yisoni. Baruch atah Adonai lamdeini chukecha omen 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 sela voed. Modim anachnu lefonecha Adonai Eloheinu v'lehavzeinu shesamtu chokenu miyoshvei beis hamelu shesamtu chokenu miyoshvei kironos. Onu mashkim v'hei mashkim. Onu mashkim l'divrei Torah v'hei mashkim l'dvorim b'telim. Onu amelim v'hei amelim. Onu amelim u'mekablim skar v'hei amelim v'eino mekablim skar. Onu rotzim v'hei rotzim. Onu rotzim l'chayi olam bo v'hei rotzim l'be'er shachas. Shene'eman v'yato Elohim toridem l'be'er shachas. Anshe domim u'mira lo yachetzu yemeihem v'ani yotavpoch. Yiratzon lefonecha Adonai hai b'shem she'azartanu l'sayem Shisha Sidrei Mishnah came to Hazreinu l'haskil l'sechtos l'sforim acherim l'saimon l'ilmod l'lamed l'ishmor v'lasos l'kayim l'skol l'vrei samot l'secha v'yahavot l'schus kol ha'tanoim v'amorim v'salmidei chachamim yamod lanu l'zareinu sh'lotomush ha'torah v'pinu v'pizareinu v'zera zareinu ad olam v'siskayim b'chol v'hisalechacha tancha ozcha v'shofchacha hi tishmor v'shofchacha tishmor alecha v'hekitzoso hi sisichecha Kivir bu yomecha v'yosifu l'cho shnos chayim orach yomim b'yamino v'smol osher v'kovod Adonai ozi amo yitein Adonai yavarech v'samo v'shalom Yitzchak Yisradei Shemei Ravo Yolamo Divro V'hu Osiv L'achadeta Uli Achaya Yisaya Uli Asoko Yosom V'chaye Omo Livnei Karta V'Yerushalayim L'shachwa L'heichlola B'gavei V'mekar Polkono Nikora min Ara Asofa Pochono Dishmaya Asrei V'yamlich Kucho B'reichu V'malchusei V'korei V'yasmach Porkonei V'korei Meshichei Chayechonu V'yamchonu Chayechol Beis Yisrael Ba'avolo V'zman Kori V'yimru Amen Shema B'Rav L'Meo Mayor Yehei Shemei Alma B'Rav L'Yolam L'Meo Mayor Yisborech v'yishavach v'yisboer v'yisomam v'yisnaseh v'yisador v'yisaleh v'yishalol Shmei d'Kudusho v'Richu v'yelom in kol v'chosov v'shirosov v'shv'chosov l'echomosov d'amiron v'yolamo v'imru Amen Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanon v'al Talmidehom v'al kol Talmidei Talmidehom v'al kol mol yoshkim v'yirayso v'yasroch hadein v'lechol asar v'lasar Yehei l'chonu l'chon shlomo rabachinu v'chesed v'rachameh v'chari arichei u'muzoni revichei u'forkono min kodom avundi b'shmayo v'yarav v'imru Amen Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen Oseh shalom imramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen I want to say a couple of words Again, yeshkar to everybody who participated in the siyum. The Mishnah ends off with is this supposed to be at me? Hashem ozi amo yitein Hashem yivareches amo v'shalom. And one of Daddy's major characteristics was that he always looked for shalom. He was always there to be able to create peace and harmony, whether he was president of the shul, whether he was in business with my uncle Leibby for over 40 years, whether he was at home. He was always looking to be able to make shalom, and it just stands as a wonderful tribute to him, and something that everybody always recognized, that he was always happy and he was always looking to make it viable for everybody to continue doing what they're doing without having machlokas. And his neshama should be Meil Yisrael for all of us. Thank you. And Tihi Nishmas Atzura B'Sar HaChaim.
Okay, we'd like to call Chaim Khan, son-in-law of the son-in-law.
So I just want to talk a little bit about what I've learned from Daddy, from my father-in-law, and talk a little bit about him, who he was. I didn't get a chance to speak at the Levaya. I'm a Kohen, so I was in the car. But from the first time I met Daddy, I met Zaidy.
Could you speak louder?
Yeah. The first time I met Daddy, I was dating very seriously with Esty. I had not met him yet. It was probably a couple of months that we've been dating, maybe a little bit less. And I'm going to meet him for the first time. So I've got all my good suit, my tie. I'm ready to meet him. And I walk to the house on 35th Street, and I go up the stairs, and there's a painter there. He's painting the stairs in a white suit and a white cap. And I said, good morning. He says, good morning. So I just want to talk a little bit about what I've learned from Daddy, from my father-in-law. And talk a little bit about him, who he was. I didn't get a chance to speak at the Levaya. I'm a Kohen, so I was in the car. But from the first time I met Daddy, I met Zaidy.
Could you speak louder?
Yeah. The first time I met Daddy, I was dating very seriously with Esty. I had not met him yet. It was probably a couple of months that we've been dating, maybe a little bit less. And I'm going to meet him for the first time. So I've got all my good suit, my tie. I'm ready to meet him. And I walk to the house on 35th Street, and I go up the stairs, and there's a painter there. He's painting the stairs in a white suit and a white cap. And I said, good morning. He says, good morning. And I go inside, and I'm waiting to meet my future father-in-law. So Esty says, did you meet my father outside? I gotta say, I didn't understand him right away. It took a while. But he was an individual. And I used to ask, I say, why do you do that? What's the deal? I'm coming from this sheltered, naive situation where we just kind of follow the rules and we look over our shoulder to make sure nobody's looking at us funny, and we just do the right thing, what I thought you think is the right thing, or you think what everybody else thinks is the right thing. And I'm not used to seeing anything like that. So I say, what's the deal? They go, well, that's Daddy. And that was the answer. I said, that's not an answer. What do you mean that's Daddy? But I come to learn that that is the answer. That's Daddy. That's who he was. He was a very special person. He was unique. He was somebody that I've never met anybody like before, and probably never met anybody like that after. He was somebody who actually did things that he felt was the right thing to do. If he felt it was the right thing to do with his moral compass, which was right on, he did it. He didn't care what other people were thinking, what other people were doing. Everybody knows he was always happy. He had a smile. Everybody looked to him, and you were around him, you smiled as well. Maybe that's why he was happy. One of the things is he wasn't beholden to anybody or anybody's views of him. He did what he felt was the right thing to do, and he went ahead and did it. And he did it in his own way. He did it without any arrogance. He just went ahead and did his thing. One of the other things you can notice in his life is he always stood up when the situation called for it, whether it was in the shul, all the different positions that he had in the shul, or whether it was in life, and he had to say something. He said a couple things to me too when he had to. He didn't approve of my midlife crisis car habits, but he made his comments, and then he went on. And he respected you. And then afterwards he'd ask all that, how does the technology work? Because that's what he did, what he had to do. We used to talk a lot. I travel a lot for business lately, something just pretty much of late. And he'd ask me about every place I go. He had this quest for knowledge, for understanding. He wanted to hear about every city I've been to. Most of them he knew about it. Did you go here? Did you see that? Tell me about that place. So I haven't been there. And he was so into it, and he'd end every conversation is do good business. That's how he'd end it. Because when it came to honesty, that was his thing. He did good business. Make sure you make a Kiddush Hashem. And he would tell me these things over and over and over again. And that's how he had his own business, and that's how he lived his own life. One of the things that we all see is how he took such good care of Mom over the years. He did it without any complaints. I've known him for 28 years. I've never heard him complain once about anything. For that matter, I never heard him lose his temper or be angry in 28 years. And he had a lot on his plate. He had a lot on his plate, but he did it always with a smile. One of the things that he did and he really loved was shul. Shul was a thing for him. When he used to come to Baltimore, he'd say, I want to go to this particular shul. I want to hear Rabbi Weinreb. So we walked into the Rabbi Weinreb, and he loved it. He just loved shul. He made friends in shul in every city he's been. So there were people that always knew him, asked him, how's your father-in-law? When's he coming back? We miss him. He just made a Roshim wherever he was, and everybody wanted to be around him because he was just fun to be around. He was just a good person. A couple of stories that I can remember when he went to shul with us, he was probably about 86 or 87 years old, and it was Simchas Torah, and the shul that I daven is a little crazy Simchas Torah, a little bit like here maybe, and they tie up the chazan, and most older people have problems with those kinds of things. He's helping out, handing his belt. He could barely walk. And he's handing his belt, he's helping it out, and he just got so into it. Then he gets up there, and he starts walking up to the bima. In the middle of Musaf, Yuducha normally in Shacharis. He probably did this here many years. Puts the talis over his head, starts making a bracha, everybody thinks, what's going on? And he made such a rosham in our shul that everybody still talks about it. Remember when he did that? Remember that. So when he passed away, everybody was asking about him, and everybody was wondering. He was like 87 years old. He was just amazing. Humor was a big thing for him. He always tried to use humor to diffuse situations. He wasn't a man that liked conflict. He said what had to be said. And by the way, he listened as well. If you ever had something to tell him, he listened to you. He listened to you, and he said, maybe you're right. He was a person that could actually say that and do that. Very unique. So the last story I'll leave you with is that story that the family knows well, my favorite. Going to the beach with Savta. And Savta, I'm going to get a look. And Savta at that point was beginnings of Alzheimer's, and she would repeat herself. She would ask, where are we going? So we're going to the beach. So he said, I don't have my clothes with us. Said, don't worry. Again, where are we going? Finally, he wanted to diffuse it. He wanted to get to the point and use his humor to actually, she says, where are we going to the beach? Where are we going? She goes, we're going to the beach. I don't have my clothes. Don't worry, it's a nude beach. She laughed. We all laughed. And he went on to the next thing. He knew how to handle the situation. What I would like to speak to is the children, the grandchildren, and the great-grandchildren, that we learned something from him. He was unique. He was not somebody that you run into every day, and you probably will never run into somebody like that. That we learn from him, and we take every situation. When he had a situation, he found a way to enjoy it. Everything he did was enjoyable. He found a way. When I go travel, he'd ask me, well, where are you going? Did you see this? Did you go to this museum? I said, Dad, I'm working. I don't really have a lot of time. You got to see this place. He knew how to make every situation that he did enjoyable. And I think that's the key. And if we could take things from him, one of the things we could take from him, maybe something like that, we could try to enjoy life as we go on. Smell the roses, as they say. He definitely did. And he got a lot done at the same time. He'd be a military for us and for all our family.
Amen. Spoke at the Levaya. So many people said very nice things, nice speech, blah, blah, blah. My wife said, okay, that's pretty good for a wife to say okay. but you didn't have to make a hesped about me. I think I overdid it a little bit. I think it was because I watched what she did, how she took care of her father for, I can't even imagine how much time and how much energy and how much effort she put in. I'm not looking at her because she's probably looking at me to tell me to sit down, so I'm not looking. But the truth of the matter is that from everybody pitched in a lot. But I can honestly say, with the help of Hashem, she really, really prolonged my father-in-law's life a minimum of 2 more years. There's no question about it. When she made the decision to move him to the Fountain View, that was really a big step in his life. And as you have heard or will hear, he took that as the next step of his life. There was not much of an adjustment period. It was just, okay. I mean, there was a little bit of resistance, like anybody who doesn't want to leave this wonderful neighborhood and the shul. A lot of excellent memories here. It was hard for him to leave this. It's really beautiful now. I remember when it wasn't so nice. This is beautiful. You guys did a wonderful job here. Wow. So it must have been doubly hard for him to leave because it was so nice. And I see Dave Nolan's light is still there from all the years ago. Anyway, when he moved to out to the Fountain View, it was difficult for him, but it was the right move. And pretty much everything that Leah suggested, along with our siblings, was really the right move for him. And being that he was a very wise person, he, took in all the information, and he was able to make, the proper calculations. And when it made sense to him, and not a moment before, he said, "Okay, let's go for it." And he went there, and he flourished, and he really did. We used to visit him quite often, and you could see that he really fit in, and he just enjoyed it. It was like, really, he deserved it. He deserved this Fountain View. He deserved for the last years of his life. And Leah really made that possible, and it wasn't just like she dropped him off there and see you around. She was there, I don't know, I can't even think about how many thousands of times that she was there over the years, and how she kept an eye on him and made sure that everything that he needed, he always had. Both from the Fountain View and both from other things. They used to do bills together, they used to schmooze together. There really are no words, and it's not a hesped, but it's just a thank you from the family, to thank you for everything that you did for Zaidy, and to make the last years of his life so amazing and so special for him, and also to say thank you for all of the efforts that everybody put in. It's not only her. Maybe now she won't be so mad at me that I'm only talking about her. Everybody really chipped in. So she wanted to speak, and I think it's a good idea. So I'll ask my wife to come up and say a few words.
Really, I never seen this. Ask my husband. The last time I spoke, period, I spoke in this shul, and it was for my grandmother's Shloshim 33 years ago. At that time, we watched how our father and mother so devotedly took such fabulous care of her until the end. How life just keeps marching on. As I stand here in this shul, that we so fondly refer to as the shtivel, so many memories go through my mind. I was about 4 years old when we moved to East 35th Street and started davening here. Rabbi Ganat was the rabbi, and I would come to shul and I would sit on his lap. Eli Silverman was the president. He would make cholent in the basement, which as kids we were terrified of. We thought it was a dungeon. There was a very special man who everyone loved, and his name was Mr. Greenberg. As I got older, I would help him set up Shalashuddis each week, not because he needed my help, but because I just wanted to have a connection to such a special man. We had a lot of good times here. We had fun at the Megillah, Simchas Torah, where Daddy made a choir for the kids, and we would go from house to house for a continuous lunch. Coming on Shabbos and Yom Tov was always comfortable. As the song goes, it was where everybody knows your name. When we moved here, our parents were from the youngest members of the shul. There were people in this shul from a different time and a different generation. People who their whole Yiddishkeit was the shul. And Daddy embraced all the different people. This was not an easy feat, as there were many different personalities and tempers would sometimes run high. Daddy was the president, gabbai, secretary, and any other position that nobody else wanted. I will always remember this shtibel with homey feelings, if that's a word. Once again, my family and I would like to thank Rabbi Klein and the whole congregation who took such good care of our parents as they aged here. We made this Shloshim Suda here because we really felt a tremendous hakaras hatov, as our father used to come to daven with our mother, and everybody participated in the caring for them both. So what was it like to grow up with our father? We didn't have a lot of money, but we were never burdened with that. We didn't go to the bungalow colony, probably because there wasn't enough money, but we would go to High Point State Park and stay in the lodge for a week. It was so much fun, and we thought it was the best vacation that could ever have been. Every year when I had off on intercession, my father would take off and take me. I guess he took Esty also, but I don't remember that part. And sometimes some of my friends to Manhattan for a day. Matzah Shabbos, we would all go out for pizza to the one kosher pizza store that was near Brooklyn College. My father embodied Ezehu Asher Hasameach Bechelko. Our parents grew up in America before kosher restaurants existed. We can't even understand what it means that there wasn't a single kosher place to go out to. So when kosher restaurants began to open, they made sure to try as many as they could. I remember there was a deli of some sort on Coney Island Avenue when we were growing up. It was one of the first kosher restaurants, and we would go there on special occasions. We grew up in a time when many of our friends' parents were Holocaust survivors. Our parents, Baruch Hashem, were born in America, and they were proud American Jews. Every American holiday, they would fly the flag outside their house. Our parents were able to understand us more than our friends' parents understood them. My friends would come and talk to my parents because they couldn't always speak to their own parents. My parents invited all types of guests to their table. They were into kiruv before it was a thing. My parents were proud to be from and wanted to share it with people who weren't. The eye doctor, Russian immigrants, anyone in the shul who needed a place, people my mother taught with. My mother taught Hebrew to adults in Brooklyn College, and she would invite them to the sukkah on Chol HaMoed. Eretz Yisrael and the state of Israel were very dear to my parents. One year, we had the absolute pleasure of having my Uncle Leiby and cousin Avi come for the last days of Pesach. After many fantastic stories, we learned how our father had smuggled arms into Palestine before 1948, how he had walked down Fifth Avenue with a group of friends holding an Israeli flag, and how people had thrown in money for Israel. We recently found a letter from 1956 from the state of Israel welcoming our parents coming on Aliyah. I guess they had applied to make Aliyah, but they never did. My father valued family above all. He kept in touch with his aunts and uncles and cousins in France. He and our mother would stop in France on the way to Israel. He would try to attend every simcha in France. He was very interested in genealogy of his family and of our mother's family, and published the family trees of both families and distributed it to various family members. He was in contact with distant cousins. Our father invited a distant non-frum cousin to Morty's daughter's wedding. This lady was born in Eretz Yisrael and had never attended a frum wedding, let alone a Haredi wedding. She came to the wedding, sat down next to Esti and myself, and complained the entire time. But our father was thrilled that she had come. Both he and our mother taught us by example how important family is. As I look back at my life, I know that I was very lucky to have been chosen to have my parents as parents. I didn't always feel that way. I wasn't always able to appreciate my father, that my father would be the one wearing the white hat and white suit in a sea of black, or that he would be the one to challenge something that everyone took as fact but made no sense. Now standing here, I wish I could have had that understanding when I was younger. He was an individual who did what was right, and that is his legacy.
For also countless times, how happy I was to see her on so many occasions in my house. It was really amazing. Really amazing. So it's really incredible that she also, although she was hundreds of miles away and making a wedding, found the time. I think Yaakov said it best at his Ofruf when he said, "Mommy, you're always on," which is really amazing. So we'd like to ask Esti to say a few words as well.
Don't worry about it. It's just a video. Nobody's gonna watch.
I'm not as prepared as my sister. I got through a few paragraphs, but just put some thoughts on the paper. I called him Daddy, Dad, Pops. Whatever it was the same name. He was a rock. He was a person who we can always count on. He always had his heart in the right place. You wanted an opinion, you'd ask him an opinion, you knew you were going to get the right opinion. Something solid, something reliable. And he was just knowledgeable on so many different topics. And these are just a few things I'm going to say and we miss about him very much. He was someone who cared dearly about all his family and his friends. Growing up in the house, being the youngest, hanging out there the longest with them together, my parents, I learned so much, but one of the main things I did learn from them is the respect that each of them had for the other. If it was anything from a political discussion to a movie that they saw to child rearing and investments, not that that was their forte at all, but they would always form an opinion together. It wasn't I'm right or I'm not listening to you or whatever, I know better. Both of them, they listened, they made decisions in unison, which is very rare and something for all of us to learn from. And as you heard a few times, and I'm sure you all know how much he just enjoyed life. He always enjoyed speaking publicly. And I think it was because I was thinking about it the other day. He just, whatever he was speaking about, I knew he had a joke, at least one or two jokes in his speech. He just wanted to have people enjoy life, enjoy what he was saying, he always added something besides the joke. You for surely learned when you finished, but he always had that humor just to be able to help people enjoy life. And he was surely a man who was comfortable in his own shoes. He was always interesting, people, they came out with all these weddings that you could only make this amount and this amount now, in Lakewood. And it makes sense. But to my father, he would go to a wedding that was, let's say a rich person made this beautiful wedding, over extravagant, most of us would say. And he would come back and say, it was really nice. They had this unique thing there and that unique thing. It was good. He had money. They were able to spend the money and enjoy. He enjoyed for the people. He enjoyed the person to be able to enjoy his own money. Because he never realized that there are people who spend money that they don't have. He himself, my parents, always knew what they were about, and that's what they were about. And Mensch A and Mensch B could have money, could not have money, and they should know themselves what they're about. So he just went along, and they really, really just knew what life was supposed to be. In their mind, they knew this is real. I'm real. I am not trying to be someone else, and I am who I am. And it's really a great lesson for all of us to learn. And I just really have to say a real hakar satov to my parents. And I'm talking about both of them because, in my mind, to a degree, they were always like one. And they raised us in a way where, as much as they had respect for each other, they also raised us that we should always love each other. We have 4 of us, 4 siblings, and we're all quite different than each other. And whatever opinions we all have, we will give our opinion, but we always agree. We never get upset at each other enough to not talk to each other. We're never like those siblings they talk about that, I'm not talking to her for a month, a year. I haven't spoken to my sister in years, my brother, whatever. Baruch Hashem. And that's why everything was done. And you just saw it since my father was nifter. All the decisions were made all together. Everyone agreed with everything that went on. And just, it's really something to really say about my parents, how they raised us and how wonderful people they are. And that's all I have to say. However, my daughter from Eretz Yisrael just sent me, she wrote something about my father, and I'm going to read it from her, because she's coming home in 2 days and making this whole thing. This is Ricky. Zaidy may have been gone for 30 days, but his legacy that he has left for his descendants is definitely alive. Zaidy was a man who understood the beauty of balance in all aspects of his life. He was never an extremist. He was simple yet unique, warm yet respected, and funny yet smart. He understood that nothing is good if there is too much of it. I remember him talking about people buying new cars, mind-boggling that someone would just get it for the luxury of it. He taught me that the indulgence of physicality is pure stupidity, that chasing money is the worst investment in life, and the pleasures of these luxuries simply didn't appeal to him. It might not have made such an effect on her. But she's a wonderful girl. He did enjoy physicality in moderation, but he used these physical things for a higher purpose. Zaidy did enjoy and indulge in the pleasures of Yiddishkeit. He was always enthusiastic speaking of the shtibel, when learning Torah, singing Old European Nigunim, and about his davening. He was a genuine example of a true Yid for his children and grandchildren. He has given all his descendants a proud Jewish identity that they all want even more of. We definitely do miss Zaidy and his charming personality, funny stories, and contagious laughter. But Zaidy's flame and passion is still living on in every one of his children and grandchildren to be, I don't know what she wrote, something Yidden. A Mestiga Yidden. I have no idea, it must have been a typo. But
Seminary. Maybe it's a seminary word.
maybe it's a seminary. What? Emestika. You're right. Emestika. There's a new way to spell Emestika, I must say. May his neshama have an idea.
Tells a story that Rabbi Yossi said he was feeling around to try to see where see where he's going. And Rav Yossi says that he finally understood this story when he was one day walking and he saw a blind man walking in the street and he was holding a torch. And Rav Yossi asked him, he said, why in the world do you have a torch if you're blind? You can't see where you're going. And he said, I'm not really holding the torch for me. He says, but as long as other people see that I'm holding the torch and I'm walking off the path, they will notice me and they will bring me back on the path. I thought of Zaidy when I read this Gemara because growing up in America during the Depression, living with the generation who went through the Holocaust, a very dark time to be a Jew, he not only made his life's work for himself and his family, but he also became an example and a leader within the community. Growing up in America had all the physical freedom he could wish for, but he faced a spiritual genocide. So many gave up their Shabbos, their Yiddishkeit, and assimilation was rampant. He chose to lead by founding an organization to help be Makar young Jews and bring them closer to Hashem. He led, I think this is our favorite story, by smuggling weapons to help the future Medinas Yisrael. Today, many children who don't feel so happy in school turn away from Yiddishkeit. But when Zaidy was basically thrown out of school, he learned one of the greatest lessons from his mother. It's really his responsibility to be in yeshiva. You just have to figure out how to manipulate the administrators to make it work for him. Similarly, when his mother built the mikvah, Zaidy walked around as if his life, his Yiddishkeit, was his responsibility, and he didn't look for anybody else to help him or make it work for him. Zaidy was like the blind man in the story of Rabbi Yossi. He took the light of Shabbos and Torah and he held it high. This helped him stay away from all the dangers to his neshama. But not just stay alive, but he raised his family in such an incredible way. He was determined to make even the next generation successful. Zaidy became an integral part of our lives from the first time I met him, when he told me that if I ever mess with Yocheved, he will kill me. He wanted to know every single detail of our lives, our children's lives, and he always wanted to help guide us in his unique, humble, and quiet way. When we were married for a few months and we were up in camp, after some phone calls of us describing what camp was like being newlyweds, Zaidy in his late 70s drove up to camp to visit us and spend the day with us. He walked around, had a nice bumpy ride on the gator, and then told us that we were doing a good job and we should keep up the good work. Zaidy knew all of our college classes, he knew our professors, the papers we were writing, he even read most of the papers we were writing, or at least that I was writing. And it was almost expected when he called me and he said, "Where do we park for your graduation?" I don't think my grandparents came to my graduation. I don't think they came. But Zaidy was there. Our children felt very close to Zaidy. He read to them, played with them, and he spoke to them about life. Chess became a life lesson for Asher about strategizing before you act. Card games and card tricks became a life lesson of how to practice makes perfect for Yoshua. And then just playing and reading for the little ones was really about just connecting to them in a very deep way. Driving to Muncie for the last few years, specifically during the summer, to visit Zaidy with the kids was always exciting and worth the trip because they loved him and they connected so deeply with him. This past January, when Zaidy kept falling asleep while we were sitting around the lunch table, he turned to me and he said, I asked him, "Zaidy, should we leave?" He said, "Why? Are the kids bored?" I said, "No, but are you?" Last summer, when I went to visit Zaidy, I spent lunch with him. Racheli got the joke. Last summer, when I went to visit Zaidy and spent lunch with him, we sat with a man who really did not stop talking A few minutes into the conversation, Zaidy leaned over and he said, "My hearing aids are off." I said, "Zaidy, why does he want to sit with you?" He said, "I don't know." So I asked the man why he's sitting next to Zaidy. Zaidy started telling me that this man was a very successful lawyer and the founder and first president of the Pulitzer Hebrew Academy in Philadelphia. The man told me that Zaidy was one of the most knowledgeable, unique, and bright men he ever met. And he valued every single second he got to spend with him around the table, even though Zaidy did not say much. I think that was just about who Zaidy was, carrying the torch, lighting the way for everybody else in his own quiet way. So the torch that Zaidy took from his parents and held up, lighting the way for us, hopefully we could make him proud by continuing on with that torch and leading the way for our future generations.
I'd like to call upon Aaron Khan, a grandson.
I hope so. We'll find out if it does. Yes, it does.
Again, I was part of those people that were sitting in the car as a Kohen and not able to speak by the Levaya. But we were sitting there watching and eating Tic Tacs. It's okay, it's not funny. So we were sitting there, and my father, he said, and it just really resonated with me, that no matter, like, you're never going to meet somebody like Zaidy. He was just very unique, someone very special, and you'll never see someone like him. And at the Shiva, Lacheli and Shachar also, I remember them talking, and they were just saying, like, people don't understand, like, oh, it's a grandfather, he was old, and it's like, he was something else. He was someone very special that you never see again, and that's something that apparently everybody thought of, and I thought that really was really important. He was more than just, you know, the standard grandfather. He had a special relationship with every single person, and every single person felt that. He had a lot of special traits. He was easy to talk to. He was smart. He was cultured. I remember when I went to stay with him towards the end of his life. It was he was going to the hospital a lot, and I went to stay with him in the hospital, and he was telling me of the history of New York, and literally I was reading Wikipedia word for word, exact same thing. I would say he wrote it, but I've seen his computer skills. But besides those traits, he was the greatest husband. We could all learn something from that. Savta was Zaidy's greatest friend, and he protected her and loved her no matter what. And he pretended everything was normal, no matter how weird it looked to us, or how odd it was. I remember when Shira came. Again, Savta was the Alzheimer's was starting to kick in at this point, and Shira came over, and they served this iced tea, which we all knew had no taste. It was because it was sugar free, and we knew it was gonna taste like water. But when we poured for Shira and Shira drank it, it was gravy. And Zaidy just sat there completely just drinking it like it was totally normal. Like, yeah, obviously you drink this. This is the drink you always come and drink. And it was just to protect Savta and to show that he loved her so much. And to us, it's looking back on that, that's something amazing, and it's insane. It's crazy, but something very important. Just before I kind of said this by Yaakov's Sheva Brachas, but before I got married, he sat me down and he said, "Aaron, you know the key to marriage? The key to marriage is pshara." So I'm not going to say my joke that I asked that over there. I said, "What's pshara?" And he said, "It's right. It's compromise." And if you think about it, the only person who is willing to compromise on what they believe in and what makes them happy is someone who already knows what's right and wrong and is confident who he is. Because changing for others is easy when you know who you are. And that's something really important, something that Zaidy definitely had. This confidence, it stemmed from the knowledge of what was right and what was wrong. And whatever Hashem wanted from him and his family, and he showed it. And again, everybody who talked to him, they saw this confidence and they wanted to talk to him. They wanted to make him happy. They wanted to make him smile. And I don't remember, it happened every year, when Zaidy used to come down for Sukkot, Aryeh and I would have a game. Who can make Zaidy laugh the most? Based on Zaidy jokes, something very similar, and Aryeh always lost. It was hard because also you couldn't tell if he just didn't find it funny or he didn't hear you at all. So it was like a wild card. But Aryeh lost 3 times in a row, I think. It's okay. I get a trophy for myself. But and then we all miss Zaidy, and even though he isn't here physically, but the best way to keep him in our life is to emulate his actions and what he thought was important. And something that sticks up, and that is this confidence. And that confidence, that stems from Yiras Shamayim. And to do what is right, no matter the cost. And if we can adopt this into our lives, we can be sure that Zaidy will be smiling down from us from Shamayim.
You sure? Because I was told no. Okay. Our next grandson is also a spouse of a grandchild, oldest grandchild of the Khans. All yours.
Mommy, this is for you, just so you know. This is for you. Aaron talked about the game we used to play, making Zaidy laugh. He has a little bit of a different recollection.
Don't play Star Loser.
That's fine. We'll talk about that later.
Don't play games without.
I didn't have any grandfathers that were living for my whole life. I didn't have a living grandfather. So when Shir and I got married, Zaidy became my grandfather, which was something that was really special to me, to have that person in my life who he was just, as everyone's been saying, not repeating anything, everyone said this already, but he was just there, and he was always listening, always willing to talk to you about anything, to give his opinion, to give advice. Whenever he would call or we would call him, especially early on in our marriage, he had long conversations with Shira. He didn't understand a word Shira said to him. He talked over Shira, but then he always, every conversation was, can I talk to Aryeh? Where's Aryeh? I want to talk to Aryeh. And that made me feel very special because someone who I just met, I didn't really know very well, and he always wanted to talk to me. He always wanted to see how law school was going, find any interesting cases. He sent me, for a couple months in a row, he knew I liked sports and baseball, and he sent me articles about baseball. These are things that he barely knew me. He didn't, what was that about? But we got postcards in the mail with articles and things that he found interesting that he thought I would like also. Shir and I came in for a wedding early on in our marriage in New York, and we went to change us out in Zaidy's house. One of the rooms didn't have a lock, which is a side story, but we got to go driving with Safta and Zaidy around New York. And they literally drove us around, I think, the whole New York. I'm pretty sure we saw everything. And we got the driving tour of New York in multiple lanes. Traffic didn't really matter, but that wasn't what's important. He explained to us, oh, this person lived here, or we went here at this time, and it was also a time that we got to see Safta probably at. She was almost part of the conversation, I would say. She remembered where things were, and it was a very special thing to see and to go through with him. He was also, before the Fountain View, he was at Tudor Heights in Baltimore for a little bit of time, and then he was at the Fountain View also. And every time I would try to talk to him, make small talk, how's the food? Everyone's delightful. The food's delightful. Well, let me tell you about the food. They have 4 types of bread. They have cinnamon bread. They have cereals. They have all, and he would go through the list of every single food: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and now everything was positive. Everything was good. It didn't matter. He was positive about everything. And everyone said he knew so much. He could tell you about anything. We had Joe Lieberman was in our house for a number of minyanim. Senator Lieberman was in our house for a number of minyanim over Pesach. And so Zaidy was already obviously much older, and he was sitting in the chair, and it was hard for him to get up. So Senator Lieberman walked in, and he saw him right away. He said, I've never met Senator Lieberman. He starts to stand up for him. And this is someone who's 90 years old, who's been through all this, and he wanted to get up for Senator Lieberman. And he said, oh, sit down, you know, don't stand up for me. But it was something that was the first thing he thought of was, you know, I'll give respect to this person. And that was just the kind of person that he was. We got to come up to Muncie about a couple weeks before Zaidy passed away, and Connie and Ariella got to see him for the last time. It was very special for us that, you know, he was totally with it, telling them stories. He slid under the coal truck for the 20,000th time. It was an amazing story, and he was just giving over his stories to the next generation, even down, and for them to see it was that important. Today is Shira and I's 7th anniversary, and you know, he said, my mother-in-law said, oh, by the way, June 11th, I hope you have plans because you're coming to the Shloshim in Brooklyn. And the first, you know, reaction is, that's a great way to spend your anniversary at a Shloshim in Brooklyn. No offense, but it's really true. I mean, the best way to spend a 7th anniversary is with someone who typified marriage. That's what he was. So to be here and to be here for Zaidy and to take in his lesson about how we know how he treated Savta and everything that he did for her is really probably the best way to spend your anniversary. So, Neshama Shem Aliyah, and we should all continue with the lessons that we learned from him, continue them throughout.
It's not $2
On September 11, 2001, people were running for their lives. The entire world was watching as the two buildings crashed and sliced through the Twin Towers. And forever, we will always say, where were you on September 11, 2001? My Shver remembers very well where he was on September 11, 2001. As he said to us not long afterwards, we got stuck in the building and they finally let us out. There was soot all around and we had to walk across the Williamsburg Bridge along with so many other people, and we found the most amazing restaurant that we had never knew existed before. Now you laugh at this except for this table because you know that that's true. But that's true. That's exactly what he said. He was thrilled that he was able to find a restaurant as the world was crashing down all around us. And of course, Mom was there and say, yes, it was an excellent restaurant. And they could remember what they ate, probably until this day. Okay, we'd like to ask Yaakov to say a few words. The Chassan.
Which restaurant was it? I don't know.
So, like everybody was saying, Zaidy was really a special person to everybody. And there is so much we all could really learn from him. But I just wanted to focus on a few things. First, everybody said that how he appreciated... It's not funny anymore. Like everybody talked about how he appreciated family, and he just gave his attention to every single child, grandchild, great-grandchild, and he just enjoyed talking to each one of us. And before Shabbos, I mean, we would call him, and he would just ask everything, what you were doing, where you in college, and just wanted to know everything about everybody. And it was amazing, and he showed when he every Pesach, I mean, he would it was Grandma's yard site. And you would see how he just talked about Grandma, and like the amount of respect he had for her and for everybody in the family. It was amazing. Also, what my father talked about that he really represented is honesty. Honesty in business. He was always he always he wasn't into the money. He just wanted, I just had to be an honest business. So everything he did, everything had to be just very straightforward. I was I was trying to think what I was doing with my life, what I was going to go for. So I was thinking about architecture, and I told Zaidy, and he's like, okay, fine. Then I decided to change, and I decided about to do accounting. So first reaction, everybody says accounting, like, oh, okay, classic accounting. And I told Zaidy I was doing accounting. He was thrilled. He's like, oh, that is like the best business, the most honest business, and I know so many people that did it. And he was just truly excited that I was doing it. So actually, it just shows that he appreciates honesty in just everything. And lastly, he is the person to learn from marriage. That me and Miriam are very fortunate we saw him. I would say that week he went to the hospital. He was very weak. When we came in, he could barely open his eyes. But when he started talking, he actually like woke up a little bit. I saw how happy he was just to see me and my kala, and he was just thrilled. And like I said by the offer of that, he was ready to go to the wedding. He really wanted to go to the wedding. But like he was just so happy just for everybody. And that goes on to what I was saying before, that he just loves family so much that he was just extremely happy for us. And it just made me feel just amazing. I'm really happy Miriam also got to meet him. And I'm happy, and I just want to say that, just talk about Zaidy and how he took care of Savta. And we really all could learn, but I'm just saying, I just got married a couple weeks ago, and I could also learn just the amazing, it's incredible how he took care of Savta and everything he did for her, never complained, and it just seemed natural. And I think I could learn and everybody could learn from all of these attributes of Zaidy, and it's Hashem Shalom.
So I think it's a tribute to hear all of the grandchildren echoing so many fond memories of their grandfather. The last time he spoke, next to the last time he spoke to me, we had about a 2-hour conversation at the Fountain View, and we schmoozed. Here's a man who was 91 years old, and we had probably a 45-minute conversation about artificial intelligence, which I know nothing about. But I knew enough about it to get him interested, and he was just bombing me with questions. I made up most of it, I'll admit it now. Didn't want to look stupid in front of him. But he was so interested in artificial intelligence. At the end, he said, it's a stupid thing, it's not going to work. That was his opinion. I guess we'll have to still see. I want to take a moment to recognize the presence of Rabbi Klein, who was here. I remember when, at your installation, we all came. I don't know why we had to come to your installation, but Zaidy said we have to come, and we came. And we were very happy to do so because we realized at the time that Zaidy saw in you the rejuvenation of this fantastic shul. Going back to Morris Greenberg, he's the last man that I knew here. I didn't know the people beforehand. He really was an amazing tzaddik. And my shver was thrilled that you were stepping up to the plate. I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I was just talking about my shver, that he could see a young man like you and see hope for the shul. And now you look around at the shul, and my shver was right. You were the right man for this job. And he talked about you all the time. So, all right, stop looking at it. He talked about you all the time because he felt that you were the one who really brought life into the shul. And I see some of the people here that I remember, some of the people I don't know, some people I remember who don't remember me, but I watched you. And it's true. The shul is alive and well because of my shver believed in you and believed in his friends that are still here and believed in youth and believed in older people and believed in everybody. He really did. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the family once again for that. So all of the grandchildren have spoken here, some grandchildren-in-law, and everybody spoke about, Savta and Zaidy's relationship, how Savta was Zaidy's best friend. But the truth is that he had another best friend, and that was Racheli. They had a bond that was really unbelievable, not to take away from the other grandchildren, but she was here and she went all the time. She made books. She took selfies with him, lots of selfies. She made him do zany, crazy things. And he loved it. So I think it's fitting that the last speaker of the evening should be Racheli.
So I kind of stole my speech, and everyone else did, because as I was trying to think of something to say, I'm like, okay, I know everybody's going to talk about that he was so happy and all that, and I was like trying to think of other things to say, and then I realized that the bottom line of everything to talk about is really his happiness. So I just jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to speak off of a paper because I can't. But
Can you speak louder?
sure. So Zaidy was really, like everyone said, he was really someone who was alive. A lot of people just go through life and they're kind of like, living, but he was alive. And it's for that reason that it's very hard for me, even though this is a Shloshim for him, and he went through Shabbat and it's been a month. But I still feel pretty numb that he's not here, because he was someone who was really so alive. Like, it can't be possible. And I think that's the reason why he was such a great husband and father and friend and grandfather, and why so many people were just attracted to him. If you look around at the Shabbat, the people who came, every person had the same thing to say, and every person agreed with the Balaam of what they had to say. Yeah, that was him. That was Hesh. That was Harold. That was Happy. That was Zaidy. That was him. He was this happy, alive man, and he really knew how to take advantage of life. Of his 91 years, he lived a whole life, and he took advantage of every day, and he saw every day as a gift, and not in a cliche way. He actually viewed it like that. I remember one time I called him, or I went to visit him, and it was raining outside, and it was like one of those gross days. He was like, well, we got a lot of rain. You should have seen how much came down. It was amazing. We loved the activities inside. Everything was great. And I'm like, this is literally the grossest day ever. Like, I don't understand. But it was another day, and he was just so excited to be alive. Some people, you go through your life and you're like, okay, like maybe I'll do this, and that's a pretty exciting job. Maybe I'll do that. That's exciting. They kind of go places to like that seem exciting, and they chase after the excitement and the happiness. I would kind of call Zaidy like a firecracker. He made his own excitement. He wasn't looking for it. And I was thinking, like, throughout his life, he kind of did pretty typical things. He went to school, he got married, he had kids, he had, no offense, but a relatively boring job. He owned a furniture store. It's not like, this high and mighty thing, but when he told stories about it, it was so much fun because it didn't matter what he did or the situation he was in. He just made it. Every day was a gift. Every day he got to go to work with his brother and he got to meet new people and find new friends and tell new stories and spend time with grandma. Sorry. and he told us, and I was like, yeah, sounds really fun to own a furniture store. I'm like, now that I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think that's like the biggest lesson that I hope that I could try to emulate is to try to really, it's not about what you do in your life, but it's really how you live it and how you take advantage of being alive. You could be happy and excited by just sitting on your porch. It's really up to you. It's up to me. And I think for that reason that every tiny event from, you know, a birthday, a graduation, a yontif, to a wedding, every single thing was a huge, was an excitement and something to be celebrated for him. Wasn't like, I think this is also a huge lesson that I learned from him. It's not, oh, I have to go to another wedding tonight. You know, we get so many invitations nowadays, like, oh, I have to go to another wedding, I have to, like, I'll run in, I'll try to catch a shmur, maybe I'll say Mazel Tov, so I don't have to stay for so long. Like, he was so excited to go. I remember he went to a cousin's wedding. They paid for his aide and they paid for a car service and for his aide to come to the wedding. And he told me about it like 3 months later. He still had the invitation and he showed me the invitation and he told me all the details of the wedding and how they transported him there and how he was there and it was so delightful and everyone came over to him and they took pictures with him and the food, of course, and he was just thrilled by a wedding. And I remember when he was still living in Brooklyn, I sometimes came in and did a few errands with him. And like a couple of times, we had to go to the silver store. We had to go pick up a besamim for a couple that got married, and he had the invitation on him with the correct spelling of their name. And you know why he did that? Not to personalize it, was so that they couldn't give it back. I just feel so blessed with that I have a role model of Simcha because that's like a pretty fundamental thing in Yiddishkeit. And it's an example for me to be able to live life to its fullest and again to be truly alive. You know, not to take myself so seriously, to keep a glint in my eye and to always be laughing because everything is wonderful. That was Zaidy.
And that's why you were his best friend? I also want to make mention of one other thing before. Is that it, Leah? We covered everybody? Anybody else want to speak? Leah referenced the few years that Uncle Leiby and my father-in-law got to spend Yontiv with us, and for us this was like watching Jackie Gleason. I'm going to date myself now. At least I'll enjoy the time. Jackie Gleason and I don't know, Rodney Dangerfield just going at it. You were going there?
I was.
All right. Going at it.
That was my go-to.
We just sat back and watched these two talk stories for 4 hours. We were just licking our fingers. It was so delicious to watch these two men, and nobody stepped over each other, and nobody was like, no, I have a better one. They just schmoozed and schmoozed and schmoozed. And I think that in our family, and luckily Avi was able to join us. Too bad on the two of you. We did invite you, but you didn't come, and it's your loss, and it'll always be your loss. It was really a special thing. But you can imagine what it looked like, because you've seen it many times before. So, we sat there, and they were telling stories, and I'm telling, like, is this true? Every word is true. And then Uncle Leiby would tell a story. Is that true? True. Everything was true. And they just enjoyed each other's company, and we couldn't wait. We begged them to come back. We begged Uncle Leiby to come back for a third year, and then I think he got couldn't travel anymore, whatever it was, and was our loss. So I think that if I wouldn't have mentioned it, he would have said to me, "This was a wonderful Shloshim, but you didn't mention my brother." So I'm mentioning Uncle Leiby to make sure that I cover all the bases. So thank you to everybody who really joined us here, and thank you to all of you who shared so many stories about my father-in-law. Most of them we knew, which is interesting. A lot of times say, "Oh, you don't know." We knew most of these stories. We heard a lot of stories, and it's nice. It was comforting to hear all of these divrei nechama. The Shloshim period is now coming to an end. We know that after 30 days, Klal Yisrael stopped mourning for Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the origin of the Shloshim. Checked it up on Wikipedia. Zaidy wrote it. But now, although the Avelim continue in mourning for the year, but it's a time for everybody to take a moment here now and think about what this wonderful person meant to all of us. We've heard it from so many people here. There are people here who aren't even relatives, who feel like they needed to be here, and friends of the shul, and all of the people that came to the Levaya, and all of the people that came to be Menachem Avil both in Passaic and in Baltimore. Really was astounding. It was just astounding to see so many people and to hear so many words, not only from the people that were coming, but also from my father-in-law's children, how they spoke so fondly of him. It was really a beautiful thing, and it's a tribute to a man who really lived his life, like Racheli said, for 91 years, and lived every moment of it through the depression, like Shimshon said, and nobody knew that it was depressing to live through the depression, and nobody knew that it was tough to sell the worst furniture in the world in downtown Brooklyn. One day you had a TV in the house, next day you didn't, because he sold it to some, I don't know what. And I always used to say to him, I remember I used to say, "You live in the middle of Flatbush. Do you see what's going on here? The fancy cars and the fancy houses, everything is going up around you. Doesn't this affect you? Don't you even see it?" He did not see it. See, that's the thing. Leah used to say, "No, he saw it." He did not see this. This was not on his radar. It was not important to him, so much so that he didn't recognize fancy car. I don't know. Fancy house? I don't know. It just was so not in his life. He really didn't see it. So it wasn't like he had to, work, on his midah of kina. He didn't see it. So it was an easy thing for him, unlike, most of us who have to work on this all the time. And this was also something that was really great. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see him in the painting outfit, as Chaim mentioned. But I met him the first time. He was very gracious. And later on, as we got closer, to me proposing, he sat me down and explained to me a little bit about how Leah had a credit card, and he's talking to me about, I don't know what he's talking about, just a bunch of stuff about life and how they grew up in the Cohen house and what she had grown up with. So we want to wrap up here because it's getting late, and again, thank every single person here in this room. And for those people that were not able to make it or came to the Shiva, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing a little bit of your day and your life with my wonderful father.